I sat in the quiet corner of the third floor at Aegis Solutions, staring at a computer screen that was blinking with red warnings. The office space smelled of stale coffee and forced corporate optimism. Above my head, the monotonous hum of the old ventilation system sounded like a machine that was tired of pretending everything was fine. I was 54 years old, and I had spent the last 12 years building this company's software infrastructure from a 6-person operation in a rented warehouse to an enterprise system, handling millions of dollars in customer transactions. But none of that history seemed to matter to the new leadership team. They only cared about metrics and scaling. My screen showed a major memory leak in our legacy database risk router. Specifically at line 438, it was a deprecated code block that had been patched 3 years ago, but the patch was failing under the pressure of our new user volume. The system was attempting to route customer metadata through a defunct server, and the latency was spiking. If more than 10 major clients executed bulk queries at the same time, the routing layer would crash, exposing sensitive customer data and violating our federal service level agreements. I compiled the logs, took screenshots, and wrote a detailed 3-point memo. I suggested a clean fallback patch that would take 3 days to implement and cost less than $5,000. I walked down the hall to the corner glass office of Oliver Finch, our newly appointed Vice President of Risk Integration. Oliver was 42, wore expensive tailored suits, and spent his days talking about culture alignment and positive energy. He was currently watching a video on his phone and laughing when I knocked on his glass door. He looked up, waving me in with a condescending smile. He had that clean, polished corporate look that always made me feel like I was being handled by a salesman. "Daniel, what is the vibe today? Tell me you have some good news," he said, his voice dripping with artificial warmth. I handed him the printed folder. "We have a structural vulnerability in the risk routing layer, Oliver. If the transaction volume spikes, we will experience a system breach. It could affect our federal accounts." Oliver did not even open the folder. He just tossed it onto his messy desk. "Daniel, you are a brilliant analyst, but you need to dial back the negativity. We are a growth company now. Let the operations team handle the technical details. We need to stay focused on positive scaling and team synergy." I looked at him, trying to keep my voice calm. "This is not a minor bug, Oliver. The vendor contract from 2021 shows we no longer have active support for this routing module. If it fails, our contract indemnity is void." Oliver sighed, leaning back in his expensive leather chair. "Daniel, let it go. You are worrying about ghost stories. We need synergy, not warnings. Let us keep our focus forward. Positivity is what scales." I left his office without another word. Back at my desk, I archived the memo and copied the entire file to my personal encrypted drive. I labeled the folder "What They Missed." I had a bad feeling that Aegis Solutions was heading toward a cliff and Oliver was pressing the gas pedal. Over the next few weeks, the atmosphere in the office grew increasingly tense. The company began quietly laying off experienced engineers in batches of 15 to 20, trying to cut costs before the upcoming quarterly audit. It was a clear violation of the Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act, which legally required a 60-day notice for mass layoffs. But the leadership team did not care about the law. They only cared about making the balance sheet look good for a potential acquisition. I found myself working 60 hours a week, doing the work of 3 people. My team had been reduced to just me and a junior developer named Toby Mills. Toby was 26, brilliant, and completely overwhelmed by the constant system errors. We spent our nights patching logs and trying to keep the system online. The stress was starting to affect my health. My hands would shake when I typed, and I could not sleep for more than 4 hours a night. One evening, I stayed late to monitor a database sync. I looked out the window at the empty parking lot. I remembered the early days of Aegis Solutions, when we worked together in a tiny room, eating cheap pizza and laughing about our bugs. We were a family back then. Now it felt like a cold machine that was slowly grinding us down to dust. I knew I had to make a choice. I could either stay and watch the ship sink, or I could start planning my escape. I opened my personal files and reviewed my original contract from 12 years ago. There was no non-compete clause, and no non-disclosure agreement that restricted my future employment. But when I logged into the company portal to check my updated files, I found a digital document I had never seen before. It was a highly restrictive non-compete agreement, bearing my digital signature. The timestamp showed it was signed on a Friday afternoon when I was physically on a plane to visit my sick brother in Denver. Oliver Finch had forged my signature to lock me into the company. Under California Penal Code Section 470, forgery is a severe criminal offense. By attempting to force me into compliance with a fraudulent document, Oliver had not only broken the law, but he had also made the entire agreement void ab initio. I closed the laptop, took a slow breath, and realized that I was no longer just an employee trying to save a system. I was a man holding a loaded legal weapon, waiting for the right moment to pull the trigger. The system failure came at exactly 2:37 in the afternoon on a hot Thursday. I was sitting at my desk, drinking lukewarm tea, when my monitor began flashing red. The main database sync for our largest client, Desert Healthcare Logistics, had failed during a critical shipment route. Desert Healthcare handled emergency medical supplies for regional hospitals, and the system crash-stalled ambulance routing across 3 states. Toby Mills rushed to my desk, his face pale. "Daniel, the routing module just crashed. The latency spiked to 40,000 milliseconds, and the backup servers are not responding. What do we do?" I opened my terminal. The legacy database risk router, which I had warned Oliver about, was locked in an infinite loop. The memory leak had consumed all available resources on the primary server. I immediately started executing our emergency recovery protocol, but it was like trying to put out a forest fire with a garden hose. The risk router handles database connection pools, and when Desert Healthcare ran their automated afternoon shipment sync, the connection pools saturated completely. We needed a clean system reboot and a temporary routing patch, which would take at least 3 hours. I called Oliver Finch directly. He did not answer. I sent him 3 urgent messages on our internal channel. No response. I had to make the decision to redirect the traffic to a secondary database, knowing it would cause a temporary slowdown but prevent a complete data breach. The next morning, Oliver called an emergency all-hands meeting. I walked into the conference room expecting a technical post-mortem. Instead, I found Oliver standing in front of a large presentation screen. The slide read, "Staying positive under pressure." The room was packed with senior managers and human resources representatives, including Clara Brooks, our lead human resources director. Oliver looked at me with a tight plastic smile. "Thank you all for joining. Yesterday we experienced a minor service disruption. We handled it quickly, but I want to address a cultural issue. Some of us come to work with solutions, others just love documenting problems." He clicked his remote, and my technical warning memo from 3 weeks ago appeared on the screen. Take Daniel here. He has been very thorough lately, documenting every single risk. But we do not want to scare our clients with internal drama. We need to focus on positivity. Positivity is what keeps clients happy. A few senior managers let out awkward chuckles. I felt a hot wave of anger rise in my chest, but I kept my hands flat on the table. I did not say a word. I knew exactly what Oliver was doing. He was publicly shifting the blame for the system failure onto me, framing my warnings as negativity rather than competence. After the meeting, Clara Brooks sent me a message asking for a quick chat in conference room. C. The Human Resources Division on the 5th floor was a quiet space with carpet, so thick it absorbed the sound of footsteps. When I walked in, I saw a folder and a tissue box on the table. Clara looked at me with a practiced, pitying expression that they teach in human resources training. "Daniel, please sit down," she said softly. "We have noticed a pattern of persistent negativity and a lack of alignment with our corporate culture. Your fixation on technical details is creating friction within the team." I looked her in the eye. "My fixation on technical details is the only reason the system did not suffer a complete data breach yesterday, Clara. I warned Oliver about this exact failure 3 weeks ago. The logs prove it." Clara sighed, sliding the folder toward me. "Oliver and I both agree that you are no longer a good cultural fit for Aegis Solutions. We are initiating an offboarding process, effective immediately. This is a transition, not a punishment." I looked at the severance package. It required me to sign a release of all legal claims and confirm that my forged non-compete agreement was valid. I stood up, leaving the folder on the table. I will not sign this today, I said calmly. Clara's expression hardened. If you do not sign, you will forfeit your severance pay, Daniel. I did not reply. I walked back to my desk, packed my personal belongings into a small cardboard box, and walked toward the elevator. As I waited, Oliver Finch caught up to me, holding a plate of leftover cake from a corporate celebration. He had a smug smirk on his face. No hard feelings, right, Daniel? He said, leaning against the wall. Next time, try to bring me a solution, not a problem. I looked at him, noting the arrogance in his eyes. You should have read the memo, Oliver, I said quietly, as the elevator doors slid shut. I drove home in silence, the cardboard box sitting on the passenger seat. I did not feel like crying. I felt a cold, sharp anger that was slowly crystallizing into a plan. I walked into my quiet house, set the box on the kitchen table, and opened my personal laptop. I logged into my encrypted drive and opened the What They Missed folder. I had the complete logs of the system failure, the time-stamped messages I had sent to Oliver, and the digital proof that he had forged my signature on the non-compete agreement. I was ready to build a case that would destroy his career and expose the rot at the core of the company. That Saturday, I met my former colleague Justin Reed at a small diner on the outskirts of the city. The diner was a relic from the late 70s, with faded wood paneling and a jukebox that had not played a song in a decade. The smell of frying grease and cheap maple syrup hung thick in the air, a stark contrast to the sterile, high-tech offices we normally occupied. Justin had left Aegis Solutions 8 months ago to work as a senior risk officer at Summit Enterprise, our primary competitor. He was a sharp, no-nonsense strategist who understood the corporate landscape better than anyone I knew. I laid out the documents on the table. Justin reviewed the technical logs, the emails, and the forged non-compete agreement. His expression went from casual interest to deep concentration. He took a blue ballpoint pen and began calculating numbers on a paper napkin. The ink bled slightly into the cheap paper napkin, but the final sum was unmistakable. "This is incredible, Daniel," he said, tapping the forged signature page. "Oliver literally committed a felony under California Penal Code Section 470. He forged your signature to prevent you from leaving, knowing that if you left, the entire system would collapse. That makes this agreement completely void." I looked at the napkin, feeling a grim sense of satisfaction. It was the first time in months that someone had actually verified the math. He shifted to the technical logs. "But this is the real bomb. You documented a systemic risk that directly threatens their federal contracts. Under the General Services Administration procurement rules, specifically Clause 4.1b of their contract, any confirmed systemic infrastructure risk that is ignored for more than 30 days is grounds for immediate termination of the contract with no financial penalty." I nodded. "They have ignored my warnings for over 45 days. And with the recent layoffs, they are also violating the Federal Worker Adjustment and Retraining Notification Act under Title 29 of the United States Code Section 2101. They laid off 65 people over the last 2 months without giving the mandatory 60-day notice. This represents more than 20% of their engineering workforce, which legally triggers the Warren Act requirements." Justin calculated the liabilities on the napkin: a civil penalty of $500 per day of violation, plus full back pay and benefits for each of the 65 affected employees. That would easily exceed $3 million in total liabilities for the Warren Act alone. Aegis is completely exposed, and they have not reserved any capital for this on their balance sheet. He leaned forward, his eyes shining. "Daniel, this is not just a lawsuit. This is a massive leverage point. Aegis Solutions is currently in active negotiations to be acquired by a major holding group. They are trying to hide these liabilities to keep their valuation high. Under Delaware General Corporation law, their officers owe a strict duty of care and loyalty to shareholders. By concealing a known material systemic risk that could invalidate their primary source of revenue from potential buyers or shareholders, Oliver and the leadership team are committing a direct breach of fiduciary duty." I took a sip of my coffee. "So, what do we do?" Justin smiled. "We take this directly to the board of Summit Enterprise. Summit has been trying to acquire Aegis Solutions for 2 years, but the price was always too high. If we show them this evidence, They can launch a hostile acquisition at a rock-bottom price. They will buy the company for pennies on the dollar, wipe out the current leadership team, and you can step in to rebuild the system. We spent the next 4 hours mapping out the strategy. We drafted a confidential risk report titled Aegis Solutions Systemic Risk and Liability Analysis. I detailed every single technical vulnerability, every contract violation, and the digital proof of Oliver's forgery. We also outlined a complete recovery plan that Summit Enterprise could implement immediately after the acquisition to stabilize the system and retain the clients. I felt a sense of relief as we finished the draft. For months, I had been screaming into a void, trying to warn a leadership team that only cared about positive vibes and buzzwords. Now, I was working with someone who actually understood the value of my work. We were not just planning a defense, we were preparing a surgical strike. Before we parted, Justin looked at me. "Are you ready for this, Daniel? Once we present this to the Summit Board, there is no turning back. It is going to get adversarial. They will use their legal team to try to discredit you." I looked out the window at the gray parking lot. I thought about the 12 years I had given to Aegis Solutions, the late nights, the missed family dinners, and the way Oliver had smirked at me with that plate of cake. "I have been ready for 3 years, Justin," I said. "Let us do it. We have the law and the facts on our side." On Sunday evening, I sat in my home office and reviewed the final draft of the report. The numbers were clear. Aegis Solutions was carrying over $77 million in hidden liabilities, and their major client, Desert Healthcare Logistics, represented 70% of their recurring revenue. If Desert Healthcare walked away due to contract breach, Aegis would collapse. I encrypted the document and sent it to Justin's secure corporate address. The battle line was drawn, and I was ready to cross it. On Monday morning, I walked into the high-rise headquarters of Summit Enterprise in downtown San Francisco. The building was a sleek tower of glass and steel, looking far more professional than the cheap, colorful office of Aegis Solutions. I was met in the lobby by Justin Reed, who guided me to a secure boardroom on the 45th floor. The boardroom was dominated by a large mahogany table surrounded by 12 leather chairs. 9 of them were occupied by senior executives and board members. At the head of the table sat Evelyn Thorne, the chief executive officer of Summit Enterprise. Evelyn was a legendary figure in the industry, known for her sharp intellect and her complete intolerance for corporate fluff. She nodded to me as I took my seat. "Daniel, Justin has shared your report with us. I must say the detail is impressive. Walk us through the core vulnerabilities." I stood up and projected our risk analysis report onto the wall screen. I kept my tone calm and professional, presenting the facts without emotion. I showed them the database router log, pointing out the specific code error that had caused the Desert Healthcare outage. "This routing module has been unsupported for 15 months. Oliver Finch was formally notified of this risk twice. I have the signed escalation forms and his direct responses telling me to ignore it." I switched the slide to show the GSA Contract Clause 4.1b, because they ignored this systemic risk. For over 30 days, Desert Healthcare has the legal right to terminate their contract immediately. If they do, Aegis Solutions loses 70% of its revenue. I then presented the evidence of the forged non-compete agreement, explaining how it violated California Penal Code Section 448 and 470. Oliver Finch forged my signature to prevent me from taking this information to a competitor. Because of the forgery, the agreement is void ab initio. They have no legal recourse against me or Summit Enterprise. The board members reviewed the documents in silence. A silver-haired general counsel leaned forward, examining the forged signature page. The timestamp is clear. He was on a flight when this was digitally signed. This is a clear breach of fiduciary duty by the vice president, which exposes their entire leadership team to personal liability under Delaware General Corporation Law. It also constitutes a material omission under Section 10B of the Securities Exchange Act of the 1934 and Rule 10b-5. Evelyn Thorne turned to her general counsel. "Could we face any liability for acquiring a company under regulatory investigation?" The general counsel, whose name was Richard, shook his head. "No, because we are the ones disclosing it to the regulators pre-acquisition, and the acquisition agreement will place all pre-existing liabilities on the selling entity's founders. They will be the ones paying the SEC fines, not us. This was a crucial point that protected Summit Enterprise while completely destroying the financial standing of Aegis Solutions' founders. Evelyn Thorne folded her hands on the table. If Desert Healthcare terminates their contract, Aegis Solutions will face a massive liquidity crisis. They will not be able to survive the quarter. She looked at her chief financial officer, a sharp woman named Martha. Martha opened a spreadsheet on her tablet. Daniel, if the Warren Act violations are as widespread as you say, what is the likelihood of a class action lawsuit from the terminated employees? I responded that the employees were already organizing on a private forum, and a class action lawsuit was almost certain. The liability for those 65 employees, plus the legal fees, will add another $4 million in liabilities. Aegis has no defense against this. Martha nodded. With these liabilities and the loss of Desert Healthcare, their valuation drops from $90 million to less than $12 million. We could acquire them for a fraction of their original price. Evelyn then asked about our own capacity. Justin, do we have the physical server capacity to host Desert Healthcare's data feeds without disruption? Justin nodded confidently. Yes, we upgraded our main database cluster last quarter. We have 40% excess capacity, which is more than enough to handle their peak transaction loads. This was a huge reassurance to the board, who were always risk-averse when it came to infrastructure. One board member, a retired colonel who ran the government relations division, asked about the transition. Daniel, if we execute this acquisition, can you stabilize the database routing layer immediately? We cannot afford to lose Desert Healthcare permanently. They are a critical client. I smiled. I have already drafted a 3-step patch that will stabilize the system within 48 hours. Toby Mills, my former junior developer, is still inside and can help us execute it. He knows the server topology and has access to the primary repository. We can transition the database traffic without a single second of additional downtime. Evelyn Thorne nodded, her expression resolute. Very well. General Counsel, contact Desert Healthcare's board. Share the technical risk report with them and offer them a temporary hosting solution on our secure servers. Once they initiate the termination clause, we will launch our acquisition bid. Let us move quickly. We will catch them completely off guard. I walked out of the Summit headquarters into the bright afternoon sun. The wheels of the corporate machine were turning, and they were turning in my direction. Oliver Finch had spent his career spinning lies and pretending that technical realities did not matter. He was about to find out that when the foundation of a building is cracked, no amount of positive energy can keep it from falling. The transition meeting was scheduled for Friday at 10 in the morning in the Aegis Solutions boardroom. The acquisition had been finalized 48 hours earlier, after Desert Healthcare Logistics officially terminated their contract, causing Aegis's valuation to plummet. Summit Enterprise had bought the company for less than $12 million, a fraction of its original $90 million valuation. I entered the boardroom behind Evelyn Thorne and the Summit legal delegation. 6 executives in dark suits followed us, carrying folders of transition documents. The Aegis board was already seated, looking pale and exhausted. Oliver Finch sat at the far end of the table, his expensive suit looking wrinkled, his face pale and sweating under the fluorescent lights. Evelyn Thorne took the lead seat. I remained standing near the presentation screen, holding a slim folder. Oliver tried to salvage his position, launching into a desperate speech. Evelyn, we welcome this partnership. I believe that with our unique corporate culture and your resources, we can create incredible synergy. Evelyn cut him off with a cold stare. Oliver, this is not a partnership. This is an acquisition of distressed assets, and we are here to clean up the mess you created. She nodded to me. I opened my folder and pulled out the forged non-compete agreement and the compliance records. I laid them on the table in front of the Aegis founders. Under California Penal Code Section 470, forgery is a criminal offense, I said, keeping my voice even. Oliver Finch forged my signature on this document to prevent me from exposing the systemic risks that led to the Desert Healthcare failure. This document is void, and we have filed a formal complaint with the regulatory authorities. Oliver tried to protest, his voice cracking. That was just a standard administrative template, a minor clerical error during the integration process. The Summit General Counsel shut him down instantly. Oliver, we have the flight passenger manifest, proving you were thousands of miles away from Daniel when this signature was digitally applied, and the logs show it was uploaded from your direct account. This is fraud, not a clerical error. Oliver looked at the founders, his eyes wide. You cannot do this. I built the growth strategy for this division. We are on the verge of a major sale. But the founders were not listening. The oldest founder, a man who had retired 5 years ago and only returned for this emergency meeting, slammed his hand on the table. You forged signatures, Oliver. You lied to the board about contract risks. You destroyed our company's reputation. Security, take him out of here before I call the police myself. The Aegis founders looked at the document, then stared at Oliver in disbelief. You ignored his warnings and then forged his signature? One founder asked, his voice shaking with anger. Oliver licked his dry lips, looking around the room for support. No one looked back at him. The General Counsel of Summit stood up and handed a document to Oliver. Per Section 5 of the Acquisition Agreement, your employment with this company is terminated immediately for cause, including breach of fiduciary duty, securities fraud, and document forgery. You are not entitled to any severance pay. Oliver froze, his mouth opening and closing without sound. He looked at me, his eyes full of panic and rage. I did not smile. I just looked at him with the quiet confidence of a man who had won a long battle. You told me to bring you a solution, Oliver, I said softly. This is the solution. 2 security guards walked into the room, stepping up to Oliver's chair. Mr. Finch, please pack your personal items. We will escort you from the building. Oliver stood up slowly, his hands trembling. He walked out of the room in silence, escorted by the guards, carrying nothing but a small plastic cup. The employees in the hallway watched in silence as he was led to the elevator. The era of positive vibes and ignored warnings was officially over. After the room cleared, I sat in the vice president's chair. At the head of the table, Toby Mills walked in holding a laptop. Daniel, the new database routing patch is ready. We are ready to deploy. I smiled. Let us do it, Toby. Start the stabilization process. Within 48 hours, the legacy database was running smoothly, with latency dropping to less than 15 milliseconds. Desert Healthcare Logistics signed a new, long-term contract with Summit Enterprise, their trust fully restored. I held my first meeting with the remaining engineering team later that afternoon. I looked at their tired faces and told them that the layoffs were officially over. We are going back to being an engineering-first organization, I said. No more buzzwords, no more ignoring real risks. We build things that work, and we protect the people who build them. At 11:47 in the morning, I stood by the large window of my new corner office, watching the parking lot below. I saw Oliver Finch walking toward his car, carrying a single cardboard box. He looked small and defeated. I took a slow sip of my coffee, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. I had not broken the law, and I had not resorted to petty sabotage. I had simply used the truth, the law, and my own technical competence to build a solution that saved the company and destroyed the man who tried to ruin me.